Greetings, sisters and brothers, comrades, fellow Ugandans. It's a beautiful day in Washington, D.C. today. Some thoughts on the situation in our beloved motherland. So recently, what date was it? February the 23rd, Archbishop Museveni canceled a prayer vigil for the ailing Dr. Kiza Besige. He basically picked up the phone and called the real Archbishop, Samogera, and ordered him to cancel a prayer service. Think about that. What does that tell you? That tells you, Ugandans, that this guy who goes about wearing military fatigues, calling himself General Museveni, he's basically a goddamn coward. That's what he is. He's a coward. What does he fear from a prayer? He fears that an overwhelming number of people would show up. They would be mobilized. You see? So every time Bobby Wine held a campaign rally, why do you think they had hundreds of soldiers deployed and police? Because they fear that the tens of thousands of people who are showing up at Bobby Wine's campaign rallies could be mobilized and told that, you know what, enough is enough. Let's march to State House and send this dictator who's been destroying Uganda for 40 years now, let's send him packing. That's what he fears. So he fears that when people come to a church, not only are they coming there physically, but through the power of prayer, they're elevating their consciousness to a certain level where they tell themselves, you know what is going on in Uganda is wrong. We can't have a guy misruling the country for 40 years, making his imbecile son, who confesses and gloats about killing, about torturing people, as literally the deputy military dictator. So he knows that when people come there to a church setting and they're commiserating, sharing comradeship with others, even if they don't end up marching straight to State House from there, they go back home mobilized with an elevated level of consciousness and preparedness. So that's what you're going to see this dictator disrupting all along going forward from now on. Because in the back of his mind, he knows that one day Ugandans are going to mobilize in mass numbers, and then he has two choices: either to flee or to order a massacre. But in 2026, it's not that easy to get away with ordering a massacre. You know, it's not easy. Maybe this is something he could have done even 10 years ago, right? He's already being isolated by the people who have been financing him for decades. The EU countries, the United States. He cannot survive without military, diplomatic, and financial support from these entities, right? You've seen how they're distancing themselves from him since he's been trying to steal this election from the legitimate president-elect of Uganda, Robert Kyagulanyi, aka Bobby Wine. You've seen the difference, the way they've isolated him. Compare that with the elections he stole in 2021. You know, you saw the comments by the European members of parliament. They're basically saying this was not an election. It was a military operation, correct? And he knows that at any given moment, if people mobilize against him, the population, the military are also conscious that if they obey his illegitimate orders and massacre Ugandans, the officers would be accountable. They would be held accountable. Okay? They're conscious of that. So now he's not even sure about the allegiance of the military. The military could just refuse to commit massacre, and they could actually escort people to State House. Those are his fears, and that is why he is trying to steal the election from Robert Kyagulanyi, aka Bobby Wine. But in this instance, on February the 23rd, he stole the archbishopship from Semogere and personally canceled a prayer. That is a sign of a coward. General Museveni, or so-called General Museveni, is a coward. And Muhoozi, we know that he calls himself a 4-star general, but anybody can order 4 stars from Amazon, okay? So those are my comments today. Comrades, fellow Ugandans, let's remain vigilant. Do whatever you can, in whatever capacity you can, to make sure that this is the year of the removal of military dictatorship in Uganda. And as I said last time, let's protect the legitimate president-elect, Robert Kyagulanyi, aka Bobby Wine, and should Muhoozi or Museveni harm Robert Kyagulanyi, sisters and brothers, I don't need to tell you what you must do, but you must do the right thing.